Welcome to a Fireside Chat. This is a special one today, as I'll be chatting with Celine Berger, who is one of our awarded scholarship holders through the Aspen Medical Foundation. Celine finished her studies and went on to become a qualified social worker. I'll be speaking to Celine about her uni experience, what the scholarship meant for her, and what she's up to these days. Hi Celine, welcome to Fireside. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So Celine, you're one of our past scholarship recipients. Would you be able to start by telling us a little bit about where you're from and where you grew up?
Yeah, so I'm from Roma, which is Mandandanji country. I identify as Aboriginal from the Mandandanji mob out there. I spent a lot of my early lives on country, growing up with my grandparents and my family. When I was about 8 years old, we shifted to Tamworth, which was a great experience because I was able to see how the Kamilaroi people do things differently to our mob in Roma. I spent most of my life in Tamworth and then eventually studied in Armidale for a couple of years, and then I moved to Canberra about 2 or 3 years ago now.
Oh, nice. In your application, are you able to tell us, in your application, you wrote that academic studies didn't come naturally to you. Could you tell us a little bit about what you had to overcome to make your way into university?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm dyslexic. So I grew up all my life being dyslexic.
Yeah.
So any classes that involved reading, writing or spelling was not my thing. So going into university, I was really worried about how that was going to impact my studies. I know that university is much harder than high school. I felt like I was struggling a lot in high school, and I thought, oh my goodness, university is going to be much harder. Which is why when I wanted to study on campus so I could get that full experience of being able to ask for help when I needed it and being able to have like team members like help me proofread things and just that, student comradeship where you just help each other out and be able to have that experience.
Yeah, it's a much nicer experience, isn't it?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. And so what did you study at university?
I studied social work. I was tossing out between a couple different degrees, but I ended up in social work.
Oh, nice. Now, in your application, you wrote that you went on a trip to Alice Springs with your grandparents when you were in high school. Would you be able to tell us a little bit about that experience of going to Alice Springs with your grandparents?
Yeah, definitely. Going to Alice Springs really shaped what I wanted to do, and I felt like has shaped my life to where it is now. I left not really sure of what I wanted to do and come back very sure of what I wanted to do. Unfortunately, when I was in Alice Springs with my grandparents, I was seeing a lot of racism that I hadn't experienced before. Things like Aboriginal people still being served alcohol through a hole in the wall, a lot of Aboriginal people struggling, missing shoes and not having appropriate clothing, wandering the street. But the main memory that sticks with me was when I saw a parent tell their child not to play with another Aboriginal child, and that racism in your face from a parent, brought down to their children. Even at that age, I knew what that meant and what that child was then going to grow up with, that internal racism, and being able to see that so clearly and in my face was so impactful and had really shaped what I wanted to do with my life since then.
Yeah, I can imagine that would have been really tough, like some people. So you've talked about some of the injustices you see. So how do you think that actually shaped your life?
As I said before, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do when I left for that trip, and I came back with very much sure of what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be and where I wanted to end up. I believe that it was what I saw that really shaped that experience for me, because I was like, I will not continue the rest of my life and not do anything about it. I've always been a big fan of the saying, be the change you want to see in the world. And I just want to leave the world a much nicer place than when I found it. I grew up, seeing racism, and to experience such blind racism that was thrown in my face at that age, I was just like, this needs to change, and I want to be able to help that change and drive that change.
That's incredible. So how did the Aspen Medical Foundation help you make your way through university?
Aspen Medical Foundation helped me so much. I was really worried about how I was going to graduate and how long it was going to take me to finish my degree with my dyslexia. But Aspen were able to put me on campus for the whole degree. So I was able to get that support and that, because I learned a lot more visually and seeing and being in like a classroom setting compared to, at home and very much self-driven. Aspen was also able to help me with tuition They allowed me the freedom to choose my tuition, and I was able to choose someone who knows my dyslexia, knows how I learn, and was able to really help me. So that freedom of being able to meet my own needs and be able to drive that for myself with their support was just incredible. I really don't believe I would have done as well in my degree and ended up even in Canberra without Aspen Medical's help.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So they paid for your accommodation on campus, part of the scholarship was, and your tutoring.
Yeah,
and
textbooks as well.
And textbooks.
Which if anyone's been to university, they know they're very expensive.
I know, why are they so expensive? So whereabouts are you working now?
I'm currently a functional family therapist, so I'm still working as a social worker, but I'm just working with families at home. We're working in the preservation space to keep children with their families and keep children out of the system. We work with families that struggle with drug use, family violence, domestic violence, behavioural issues, truancies, mental health, and a whole range of different things to keep kids at home where the evidence says they are the best place to be is at home compared to in the system.
Yeah, that sounds like you're making a real difference.
Thank you.
And whereabouts do you see yourself in 10 years?
That's a great question. I've been thinking a lot about that recently. With the work that I've done, I've noticed there's only so much you can do on the ground. The groundwork is super important and definitely is a big role, but some of the changes that I want to do are definitely higher up. They're more in tenders and budgeting and funding and policies and procedures. Yeah. I eventually want to end up there in 10 years' time so I can make the difference that I want to make and start that fundamental change, which will trickle down to the communities that I currently work with at the moment.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. It's like, I know someone that once said, you don't want to be the ambulance at the bottom. You want to stop having to have the ambulance at the bottom if you stop it at the top.
Yeah, definitely.
So if we can tighten all that up, you never know the difference that you can make.
Yeah, or even the Band-Aid solution. It's good to serve a purpose, but at the end of the day, a Band-Aid's just a Band-Aid, and that bigger change needs to happen higher up.
Well, it sounds like you're doing amazing things, and I'm so happy that the Aspen Medical Foundation could help you. Thanks so much for joining us, and all the best for the future.
Thank you so much.